So for this video, I wanted to go over a couple of pictures that I put together. They're very simple, nothing too crazy, but still the simplicity tries to convey a deeper truth concerning our reality, concerning the soul or the spirit that you really are, because still soul can also be considered a limiting factor through spiritual studies, which we will not get into right now, but you will be able to find evidence here and there that ultimately what we are eternal spirits, infinite awareness, which is even beyond the concept of soul, which can be a limiting factor in this perception. But all of this doesn't really matter. For this video, I want you to just simply look at the slide that you see on the screen, and I'll explain it to you as we go through it, and hopefully it gives you some more insights about the true nature of who you are, what you are as an infinite eternal spirit. So in the middle of this picture, you see this great yellow circle and it says Creator, the Source. And this is just words to convey the idea of God, which they do in religion. And they have different terms for God, depending on the religion. But the idea is that this God is the source behind all of creation, and we want to reunite with it in order to break free from limitations and this suffering that we experience as long as we're in this physical reality and stuck in the reincarnation cycle as well. Because that is what's happening to all of us if we don't watch out due to our ignorance, and if we consider only the physical world as real, then when you pass away, then it's not that strange that you want to come back. But this slideshow is about finding our way back to the source, to the Creator, to God. So I wrote this text that from this source of infinite light and love came everything into being, which represents all these arrows coming out of the source. So these arrows represent human beings, animals, nature, the universe, every physical thing that you can observe while you're here. Now I also wrote that if it appears evil or negative, it's due to a distortion. This is very useful to consider for yourself, is that evil and negativity is not really what we're meant to be stuck in, what we're meant to experience for a long time. Actually, it's something we have to get away from as fast as we can. And we can only do that by realizing it's a distortion, but also realizing that it came from the infinite light of God. How strange, we're saying here that good and evil came from God. So all this suffering, the horrors that we experience came from God. It came from the same source, which is God. So it's all part of God. But in us, in particular, as a human being, the evil and negative will be because of the mind and the ego. This is what causes the distortion of separation and all conflicts between it and things perceived, forgetting from which everything came, the one infinite light of God. So what I'm trying to get here is that it's our own mind and ego ultimately that keeps us stuck in limitations. We have to break free from it and realize that we are eternal spirits, children of God. I am a son of God. Oh, that's blasphemous. How do you dare say that? Well, I'm saying it because I know myself as infinite awareness, as an eternal spirit, even though I'm right now stuck in limitations with you and everyone else. That's what this physical journey is. It's a journey of limitations. It's not really fun once you start to see the truth. And then you start to awaken as well. So let's go to the second slide. Everything that is created in this world appears to be made by other humans. We give them credit for it, but in truth, things are made through them. The inspiration itself for any story, art, game, movie, music, whatever it is in the entire universe itself, it came from the source behind all of creation. Therefore, it is actually still made by God, by this source, but specifically created through the individuals that were involved in whatever was created. So this is a way to neutralize your own ego. It is not to walk around and to think to yourself, oh, I do all these great things, look at me, oh my God, look at me, yes, humanity, be amazed at what I do. So many people are walking around like that. It's so silly, because ultimately they can only do what they are doing because of the Creator, the source. So the real credit should be given to source and not to the petty ego that keeps us blinded and separated from God. So by perceiving everything right now around you as being a manifestation of God, that is actually very useful in your own growth and unfoldment. It neutralizes your own ego more and more. And you don't really see that you own stuff, you're just simply borrowing them while you're here. And ultimately, you yourself are meant to become a creator of your own universe, but that cannot be done through the physical body. This is limitations, a limited world, from which we will break free through awareness, through greater awareness concerning these matters. As a son or daughter of God like you've been given the power to create your own universe, and you can then do it while knowing this is because of the Father. Because of God, the source, I'm able to create whatsoever I desire whenever I want, in total freedom for all of eternity. But this realm is the realm of the devil, the wicked one, as they said. This dimension is wickedness. You can't do anything instantly. It takes time, suffering, and struggle. That's why I think to myself, fuck this place. Once I'm dead, this body's gone to dust, I'm out of here. So now we're going to the third slide. And we're going to go on with what we were just saying about realizing that everything came from God. With this clearly perceived that everything came from one source, you realize you are surrounded by God all along. But due to ignorance, you may not have realized it, and also due to ignorance, the sense of separation came into being, and we get into all kinds of conflicts with things and people. Everything around you right now is a manifestation that came into being out of this infinite light. If it is evil, the beam coming from the source has gotten distorted, so to speak, but it can always be cleansed and restored by the truth. This is very, very deep stuff that we're getting into, obviously, and it takes a lot of contemplation on your own part. But the point still remains that this world in which we are right now feels like we're separated from God, like He's no longer here. You pray to Him for help and He doesn't give you any help. People get killed and suffer and all kinds of disgusting shit happens down here. And it's because we have forgotten that we don't belong here at all. That we belong in total freedom. And it's another dimension altogether. But even though that is the case, this realm is just a reflection, a distorted reflection of a higher reality. So the beauty you see in this world is only a tiny fraction of the true beauty that exists in the higher heavenly dimensions in which your eternal spirit is supposed to dwell. This is all hinting at the fall of mankind. This also describes the idea of Satan being cast down to the earth with his servants, his minions, and it's absolutely disgusting initially to consider that we are in hell right now. It's the lie, it's the great deception that we are taught that after you die you go to heaven or hell. That's not true. You are in hell right now. This right now is hell. Can't you see how limited you are? If you're supposed to be a true, free child of God, where's the freedom? It's not here. It's in the source. We have to go back. We do that by realizing what has happened and what is going on. So, when we speak of the distortion, as this fourth slide says, we mean ignorance. No matter how evil or destructive someone or something is, due to it not currently remembering or being unwilling to embrace the truth of where they came from and their unity with things, they tend to act or cause destruction and evil wherever they may go. But if they are willing to let go of their ignorance and remember the truth, they can cleanse this behavior forever. That's true. That's the ideal for humanity, is if they understand their unity, then there would be no more need for wars. Rather, there would be need for cooperation, to actually talk on how to work together in order to benefit both sides, instead of just one side taken with violence everything. This is the ignorance, the collective ignorance of humanity as a whole, by believing that they are this physical, limited thing that grows old and rots in the ground eventually when you're dead. Now, whether physically alive or after death, we should try to embrace the beauty behind all of creation, and now that it's up to us, individually, to reverse the distortion, if we are still caught up in it. Look at the arrow. As you can see, it points away from the Creator, but instead focus your entire spirit on aiming it back towards the Creator, whether in this world or in the other dimensions after physical death. If not, the arrow shows we tend to focus ourselves away from the Creator and keep suffering in all kinds of manners. So you do this through meditation, through sitting in the silence, focusing your consciousness inwardly, to remember who you are, to sense that you are an eternal spirit and not the body. Then you realize your true nature more and more, and you are essentially aiming yourself back towards the Creator source, instead of towards the manifested phenomena that came into being because of the Creator that's hidden from view. If you look outside of yourself, you can't see the Creator, you see the phenomena that came into being because of something invisible. And you want to start to perceive and experience the invisible, so that you can then go home, break free from physical limitations after death, because you have knowledge, you have wisdom by then. You're not dying ignorantly and not understanding what the fuck is going on. You understood by training yourself before that moment came, by focusing your mind inwardly and experiencing the true spiritual nature of who you are, that you will be confronted with once the body stops functioning. That spiritual part of you works through imagination and intentions. It's totally free and limitless at that point. But if you don't know how to control it or don't understand it, that's the greatest problem. If you don't understand this to begin with, you're probably gonna go all over the place with your consciousness, with your spirit after death, and you don't know what the fuck is going on. And then other beings have to help you, and those beings may not have the greatest intentions, because that happens on Earth as well. People scam you all the time. Imagine being scammed in the afterlife. Yes, it can happen. Don't be naive thinking that it's all perfect out there. No, good and evil exists in those realms still as well, until you go back to the true source of God. And that's our job. If someone you cared about has died, imagine one of the arrows retracting. It is pulled away from this dimension in which we now exist. However, in most cases, it not entirely retracts back into the Creator. Rather, it hangs around in one of the other dimensions, the astral world, for example. But our goal in the very end has to become to retract our steps entirely back into unity with the Creator, to end all of suffering, all the suffering and separation forever. You see, ultimately, you simply go back to yourself, because you are a child of God, you partake of the qualities of God, you are actually a particle, a spark of the divine, you could say. So by finding yourself, you actually find God. That's the truth. But we're talking about finding yourself in the depths of your own heart, of the true spirit of yourself, and not just based on the superficial ego and mind that thinks it's a body, a name, gender, etc. That's not you. That's who you experience right now. That's an experience that you're going through right now. So it's not the real you. Who is the real you? You can only find it by going inside. Now, all of this, when it occurs, it does not mean you stop existing if you retract yourself back into the source. Instead, it means you have entered that infinite light behind all of creation, through which everything came into being. And it is at your command, and you no longer have to struggle and suffer for survival as you have been in the lower dimensions of existence. Everything had to be done by sweat and hard work, whereas a true spiritual child of God has the power to do whatever it wants, since God has given all things unto his children. So this light, you find it within yourself. You are the light. That's the truth. So people pass away, they talk about, people with near-death experiences, let's put it like that. Because if someone passed away, they're not coming back here to that same body, but they talk about this tunnel of light, and I meditate on that, and I'm like, this tunnel of light, where am I perceiving it? It's the same as physical perception. You are looking outside of yourself for guidance, but ultimately you have to realize you are the light of the world. So you don't have to look at a tunnel of light after death, you have to look into the heart, into your own very heart, because that's where God resides. Then you're being guided to watch the true infinite light of your own power. Your own eternal powers come back to you then. So what lured us away from this infinite source, this inner light? The desire for physical existence, for one. The curiosity about these physical phenomena, as well. And in doing so, we became completely lost and turned away from the truth. the light of God, the source behind all of creation. As this took place, we now find ourselves in all kinds of dimensions in which we seem to suffer until we repent, which means to turn back towards our true home, which is the heart, which is your own heart. Spiritual perception. It's the infinite light of God. Until then, most keep desiring physical things over spiritual truth and realization. Are you there yet? Only you can tell. You see, these are just two simple examples of why you are here. But they may not be accurate at all. If I say to you, you desired physical existence, you might be like, that's not true. I want to get away from here. Fuck this place. I might say, you were curious? Well, that might not be true. Maybe you were not curious at all. Okay, what other options are there? Well, you were manipulated and deceived through deception to come here. Yeah, it's really true, ladies and gentlemen. Don't underestimate that demons exist. They deceived you into coming here. How did they do that? Through the fact that as a child of God, you also have something called infinite compassion. And through that infinite compassion, from a higher perspective, a higher dimension, you look down to the dimension of physical reality and you see and hear and feel all the suffering that humanity is going through. And then you're like, I want to help them. And then you're being deceived by demons to come down here. That's an option as well. That would actually explain why so many people don't want to be here. They don't understand why they're here. They want to go home to their infinite home, the infinite nature of who they really were before they were incarnate in flesh and blood. So through deception, many of us are actually in this place. Our own compassion was used against us. Because we were like, okay, maybe we can help these people. They're suffering so much through my infinite compassion. I want to help them. And now you're stuck here in the same realm of suffering. It's actually very insidious how this can all go. But regardless of all this, it was also written in the Bible in its own way with the serpent, this and that in the Garden of Eden. What I'm saying, if it's shocking to you, it's just different words for what's already been described on the internet through religious texts as well, which are trying to show you part of the truth. Just like this video, it's trying to show you part of what happened to you as a child of God that has gotten lost in physicality. So, if you still desire physical things more than the spiritual, which so many people sadly do, well, still do not be dismayed. It had to occur this way, or we never entered this dimension to begin with. There will come a time in this life, or in some future incarnation, in another life on Earth, or other dimension beyond death, where you will start to truly desire God over everything else, which means you desire to know the truth, to become one with the truth, to reunite with yourself in the depths of your heart, and reawaken spiritual perception and being. That will be the sign that you have been called by God itself, if that longing is in your heart, since He speaks to you through that language, to try and compel you to reverse your direction. But the source never forces it either. It's up to us in the end. Just like how many people might desire great wealth and all kinds of things on this earth, but perhaps never realize it, so too you can desire to know God and become one with God, even though it might not be realized right away. We have the freedom to pursue these matters with our entire heart and spirit, or be reluctant. In the end, we will gradually learn to give ourselves over to God, for the suffering we experience otherwise becomes unbearable at its own pace. So again, it's not something to worry or stress over. Remember this. You see, learning to give yourself over to God means learning to trust in your own heart. Learning to be guided by your own heart, because that is where God resides. It's not complicated, it just takes some work on our part and the willingness to go there, to go into your heart instead of into your mind, which has been programmed by this world, or to go towards other people constantly for their advice. They might give you good guidance to a certain extent, but ultimately we all have to go towards the true place of guidance, which is the heart, the seed of spirit, the seed of eternal life is there. It's within you. When suffering becomes unbearable, which it is for many, we start to seek a way out of it. Initially due to ignorance, we might see drinking a lot, using drugs a lot, taking our own lives, being obsessed with all kinds of other physical things as a way to escape our suffering, but it will never work long term. We realize that too causes suffering at the end of the day, so finally at some point we dare to say within our hearts, I need you, God. I've tried everything else, but nothing can save me from my predicament. Show me the way out, reveal the truth, and the way out of this mess. And he will answer. Well, it. Source is not a gender-based, but that's how it's usually done. But it, the source, will answer if you truly want this from the depths of your heart. If you go seeking for the answers inside your heart, the source will answer. It will reveal to you all kinds of truths through spiritual vision, to spiritual perception. So no longer physical perceptions that are so limited and stupid in comparison. Now, how does God answer? How does this source answer? Through the intuition of the heart, through visions you have at night. Slowly but gradually, you will start to discover your way out of suffering with an expansion of awareness and wisdom. This too, if we take a religious turn, was also written in the Bible and many other great ancient spiritual texts, that God speaks to mankind when they are deeply asleep at night. Those are the signs that you will notice once you are ready for the ascension towards the infinite light of your heart and soul and spirit. As this process unfolds, you will notice that even during your waking hours, throughout your days, you will feel guided from the depths of your heart on how to handle the things you are currently confronted by. Always God will be there to guide you from your heart and spirit. Most people do not know of this kind of guidance and what it's like because their ego is too preoccupied with the physical dimension alone and how to handle their current physical life from that perspective. But they too will one day arrive at a place where God will guide them by their own decision. They will want to end their own ignorance and suffering. So again, it is never a forceful way of being guided, but a loving, gentle way. What is this with religion? If you misbehave, you're gonna burn in hell. What kind of God is that? What kind of God are the most people looking at outside of themselves? You see, I kneel for no one. In religions, they kneel for God. I would not kneel for God because I know I'm a son of God. I don't need to kneel for God. He doesn't want that. The source, doesn't need me to kneel for it. Doesn't need that at all. Rather, what it wants is for me to partake and embrace this true nature that was given to me. Total freedom, eternal life, everlasting life. The ability to do whatever you want for all of eternity. That's the truth. That's your destiny. The answers you need will come to you. The questions you need to ask will rise up automatically from the depths of your being, and you will gradually rise up in awareness. The arrow gradually retracts back towards the Creator, and you will be guided every step of the way. The reason I'm saying this is because there will always be questions to which you want an answer but cannot seem to get one, or wrap your head around the answer as a mere human. Don't be concerned about this. Everything you need to know will be revealed in its own peculiar way, since we are dealing with spirituality and not physicality at this point. We're dealing with infinity, not the finite. So some answers can only be given once you are no longer a human, because it would make no sense from a physical angle, or it is completely impossible to comprehend while you're still experiencing this limited manifestation of being a human being with limited perspectives on stuff. You see, as a human, physical human, you can't comprehend infinity. As spirit, you can't even comprehend infinity either. But at least you can explore it freely, because you are not bound by the limitations of flesh and blood and time and space. That's why they have been considered satanic, as disturbing as it is for most people. Now, it's disturbing indeed to wake up every morning and you consider, am I in hell? Is this the world of the devil? Yes, it is, because you're being severely limited here and fooled into believing that you are this limited being. That's not what it means to be a free, eternal spirit, a child of God. That makes no sense. With these current insights revealed, let us go back to the most important realization of all. Everything is indeed a manifestation of God's infinite light and source. You are surrounded by God right now, and the more you can actually embrace this and feel the beauty of it all, the more your suffering will gradually fall away. And instead, higher wisdom and insight will be instilled, which will guide you even closer towards the truth. The truth that sets you free and brings you home to God, to who you really are. As the arrow representing our souls initially move away from God, it becomes distorted by a sense of separation, which then causes all kinds of negative conflicts due to forgetting our true unity with all of creation. And this is given to us as offsprings of God's infinite being. So we should learn to forgive everything that has ever happened to our ego, our petty little egos, and embrace who we really are, a child of God. That's what you are. And that is absolutely beautiful, but you cannot truly feel it as long as ego and mind are in the way. This is the struggle that we all have to go through. It is a struggle that I'm currently also going through. But there will be times where through meditation you will actually feel this peace and bliss rise up from your heart. And then that peace and bliss can color your perceptions. It will allow you to see reality in a different way because spiritual vision starts to awaken within you and showing you the absurdity of this dimension and why it is important to go home so that you can be free. That is true heaven. Heaven would be true freedom. To do whatever you want without effort. All this effort and all this struggling and suffering is not normal for a child of God. It's not. It's a lie. It's a deception caused by the devil, by demons, by negative forces. And after death, these negative forces will also wait for you and me, everyone. The way to overcome all of them is by knowing yourself, by understanding who you are, by entering into your own heart, by allowing spiritual vision to develop within you and then to finally remember who you really were beyond the body, beyond the illusion of time and space. There lies infinity.